Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Board of Selectmen meeting of May 20th, 2014. I apologize for starting a little bit late today. The first item on the agenda, the Beecher Road School renovation project contract, we're going to move down in the agenda. If I can have a motion to begin with the Eagle Scout project presentation.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So, Brendan?
Good evening. I'm Brendan Purcell, and I'm with Troop 63, and I'm here to present my Eagle Project idea. So, the idea that I have is we're going to be clearing a trail, building a bridge, and remarking the trail that was built 35 years ago by Gregory Roberts. And if you look at the map, it's about an 80-foot stretch that I'm going to be working on. Yeah.
We just have a special surprise tonight. It's Emma's birthday today, and there you go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ellen. Happy birthday to you.
Who's that guy?
Did you bring it up for everybody?
Who's that guy?
I don't know how you want to work this.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Gonna make a wish.
Given the delay in the meeting, I think you all know what I'm wishing for.
The rest is up to you.
Okay, thank you.
However you want to wing it. The boss.
Okay, Brendan, we'll see how agile you are. Where were you?
Maybe if I present well, I'll get a piece of cake.
Yes. There you go.
See, that's a
Good.
good.
That's right.
There's some agility right
Yeah.
Alright, so my project will really be based on this 80-foot stretch of mud, but it'll also include remarking the rest of the trail, which is worn down in time, and that'll be about a quarter of a mile. And the trail is an extension off of Blue Trails that meets with Orchard Road, which is actually the road that I live on, so this is pretty close to me. And the trail itself was built by Gregory Roberts, who passed away, and it's a memorial to him. He built it 35 years ago, and it's sort of fallen into disrepair. But it's really important to the people, the neighbors that live there, including me, and everybody else who just likes to use the Blue Trail, because it's an extra extension, and it's really nice to walk back there. I know there's a family that walks dogs that lives right next to the entrance, and they'd love to use it, but it's really difficult to pass through there because of all the mud. Also, I'm on the track team, and my friends like to run down the Blue Trails, and this would allow us to run another trail, which running 10 miles a day, we run every trail in Woodbridge, and another one would be great. So, if you look at the images, the first one is a sign that commemorates Gregory Roberts, who built the trail himself.
Is it Bob Gregg? No. Bob Gregg? No?
Okay, thanks, sorry.
No problem. And it really, immediately, as soon as you walk onto the trail, you can notice the damage. It's wet and muddy, and it's pretty much impassable for anybody that would go back there. And as you go farther down the trail, about 30 feet in, you get to a small creek that crosses, that someone did try to build a bridge that you can see there, and it didn't really work very well. It's pretty difficult to get to the bridge in the first place. And someone actually just put a box in the middle of the trail to try to walk across it, but it didn't work either. So that whole stretch of mud, and especially the creek itself, will have to have a suspended bridge over it, and it's only going to be suspended about a foot. And the stream is seasonal, so it's not there all the time, but the mud is pretty much always there. So we're going to have something over that. And the mud continues on past the trail for about 20 feet. There's also some brush that we're going to have to cut back and a tree that has fallen. And the remarking of the trail is really important because as a Boy Scout, I know leave no trace is really important. You can't have people just walking randomly through the woods. It really disturbs the habitats. And even the bridge itself over the wetlands, it's bad to have lots of people just walking right through the mud. There's frogs and salamanders that live in there. And the bridge itself will have minimal impact because I live so close to there. I'm going to be building it at my house and then transporting it there up the hill, which is about 400 meters, and just laying it down in there. So that'll minimize the impact on the environment and hopefully create a safe environment for the animals and the people who want to walk back there. So I think this project is really important because it's benefiting the community around the trail, people who just enjoy using the trails, and it's adding a new trail to the system. This project, if I get approved in time, will probably only take the summer because I have plenty of volunteers who have already expressed interest in this. I know just off the top of my head, my troop will always be of assistance, and then my friends on the track team will help, and even some of the neighbors have said that they'll volunteer to help, which will be really nice. The actual materials and the procedure involved is pretty basic. The only materials that we really need are just the lumber and the nails and the paint for the signs. Just 3 types of lumber are needed for the design that I made that you can probably see on the next page. And it's pretty basic. It's just going to be suspended a foot above the ground, and there are going to be 10 8-foot long segments that we're going to bring up there and connect together over the creek and the mud. So really what I'm just asking for today is approval to start the project. I mean, this is just a rough estimate of what I'm hoping to accomplish, and I hope that I can get approved tonight. That's it.
Have you checked with the Inland Wetlands Agency and the Building Department?
Yes, I can't actually get their approval for this until I get approval from here, unfortunately, but I have talked to some people there, and they're interested in helping me with this.
So you understand that even if the Board of Selectmen approves it, you would still need other approvals?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions for Brendan? Okay.
He promised me I can drive my car over it when he's done.
Well, it looks like a terrific project. About how many people do you think will be working on it?
I mean, we have that whole stretch of the trail that we're going to have to remark, so probably I could have about like 15 people working at once, maybe 20. And then there could be people at the house, inclusive of that number, just building the actual bridge itself.
Well, if it all goes well, I hope you'll invite us to come see it when it's done.
Definitely.
Is there a motion to approve the
Well, I was just
project?
gonna say, I know how wet that section is, so this sounds like a terrific improvement.
So moved.
Second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
Okay, so I'd like to I'd entertain a motion, please, to go out of order again to item number 5, authorizing the execution of various agreements, resolutions, and applications. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the first is to authorize the first selectman to execute the CPACE agreement. This is something where we had a presentation at a recent meeting. Betsy, do you want to just remind everyone what the program is? And
So CPACE is the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. And it's a program for commercial building owners, industrial building owners, and multifamily property owners. And it allows them to put a voluntary assessment on their building to help finance qualifying clean energy projects. And the reason that the town would need to sign an agreement is because that assessment would go on their tax bill, but it would really just be a pass-through. And the main question at the last Board of Selectmen meeting was, would this place a burden on our tax collector? And she checked with other tax collectors that have already signed on to the program, and it's not a big deal, and she has no concerns about it.
are there any questions?
And we don't
It doesn't cost us any money.
Correct.
Correct,
I didn't know.
pass through.
Total pass-through.
Is there a motion to approve signing of the CPACE agreement?
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The second item is really technical. The board already approved my signing the agreement on the microgrid, but it turns out there's a technical requirement by the state that there's certain resolution language that needs to be approved. So I'd ask for a motion to approve signing the resolution as included in the packet. Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
It's this one called certified resolution,
It's the
To-
language that is
too deep.
in italics. Italics.
And this is their language, even it doesn't refer to the microgrid, it's just blanket
It's
to
their language.
any contract to deep we're giving you approval for, right?
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is the multi-jurisdiction hazard mitigation plan. Is Warren Connors here? This is something else that we've discussed before. Warren, you would just give us a quick update?
Good evening.
Good evening.
For those of you that don't know what it is, it's through the South Central Regional Council of Governments, 7 municipalities got together and developed a hazard mitigation plan for each municipality. And the final draft was approved by DEEP. And what this does is, in the event that there is some kind of catastrophic event, such as a hurricane, tornado, or some other type of storm in the municipality, there's money available through FEMA, and that allows us to apply for those reimbursements should we have an event. And DEEP approved the plan, and it was in draft form. DEEP approved it, and we've got final approval, and we've got copies here in the town hall.
Any questions for Warren? Is there a motion to approve the plan? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Thank you.
Thanks, Warren.
And now we have a request from Masoro Farm to approve an application for Natural Resource Conservation Services. Farmer Steve.
Hello.
Good evening.
Last fall, Masaro Farm put in an application with the Natural Resource Conservation Service to do some erosion control work on the farm. For all of you who've been there, you might have seen our main farm road gets washed out each year, and so we met with engineers from the NRCS to come up with a plan. I believe you have that plan in your packet, and so the work would then correct that erosion by diverting some water off and slowing it down along the road, so that we don't have these problems each year with erosion. The grant also includes work to create new seasonal high tunnels, just like the structures we have. They're basically unheated greenhouses, so large hoops with plastic covers to extend our growing season.
This requires our approval?
As the landowners, because since the town owns the land, the NRCS likes to see approval of the work that will happen. Normally, I'll also come back for building permits, of course, but before approving of the project or committing funds to the project, they like to see landowner approval.
Is there a motion to approve the application as noted? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thanks.
And if I could trouble you for a signature as well.
Sure.
Send it in.
It's timely.
You don't just take my word for it.
We need another vote.
There's 2 spots there.
Okay.
Thank you so
Yep,
much.
you're welcome. Okay, next, we have 2 American Red Cross agreements. Jerry, do you want to
Yeah,
describe those,
very
please?
quickly, I think the agreements, the letter of agreements, and the other document in your packet, the shelter agreement, is sufficiently self-explanatory, but this is to provide for the cooperation, collaboration, coordination between the town and the American Red Cross in the event of a natural or man-made disaster. It describes the responsibility of the Red Cross, the town, in the event one of those two things occurs. The town specifically is allocating one of its buildings, the center, for purposes of housing, feeding individual in the event that we have a situation that requires the Red Cross to come into town and assist us in one of those events.
We've done this before. No, this is a re-up, if you will.
We previously, this is a re-up, and it's handled by Human Services. The Human
Since
Services.
2000?
Yeah.
Last time we did it was in 2000.
Oh, last time we did it.
Right.
How was it effective?
So why did we stop?
I'm not sure. Human Services.
This never came up?
Yeah.
This one came up?
They're tightening up their
Yeah.
paperwork. Okay.
Okay.
Red Cross.
Oh,
So it wasn't
so de
for-
facto it was there, but we didn't have the paperwork behind it. Is that, if we ever needed it, we could have?
Right.
Okay. So where it says town agrees to, we have that all covered, I take it then, because
Yeah.
we've been doing it.
We've been doing it. Yeah.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to sign the letter of agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
Just have one quick question, I'm sorry. We have one primary shelter right now, and has a backup generator, right?
Yes.
And that's all I had to ask, thank you, I thought so, okay. Thanks.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, and the second is the shelter agreement?
Yep. The shelter agreement, it just allocates the facility that we will provide in the event of a disaster. And there's insurance requirements on the Red Cross. They have to carry $1 million worth of general liability. They indemnify us for anything they do improperly. They will provide food services in the event people are housed there. And we maintain the facility. And they will pay for the cost, the reasonable cost of food and custodial care in the event it occurs.
Questions for Jerry? Is there a motion to approve signing the shelter agreement?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now the Nutmeg Network. Tony.
This is the agreement that would allow the town to join the state Nutmeg Network, which is the fiber optic infrastructure that the state has put in place. And it would provide us with initially internet access, but the state is rolling out, or is going to be rolling out, a lot of different programs and information on this network that we'd have access to. So we do have the fees in our budget, and we have a grant in place, which we are waiting to hear from, for some technology that we need to purchase infrastructure equipment. The network is currently a fiber optic network. Some towns have a lot of expense related to hooking up to the network because it gets far away from their site, so they have to put in fiber optics to get to the network. Ours happens to be in the same room at the police department, so we have our fiber loop and the fiber network are in the same place. So we're able to connect to that with a pretty low cost. And because we're ever more reliant on the internet for our operations, including our financials and some other operations, it makes sense to us to do that.
Questions for Tony?
I didn't understand this.
Hmm.
I mean, is it content or is it technology?
It's currently a fiber optic,
Oh, okay. I understand.
but they're gonna create
I
content
see what
on
you're
that
saying.
loop.
I got you. Okay. I was
Is our
missing that.
primary interest the content though? Because we have access to the internet.
No, our primary interest is getting a higher speed
Higher speed.
for the internet at a greater, better price, and also redundancy in terms of we have a cable line and then we would have the fiber line.
So our research shows this is a cost-effective way to get all.
To get better, improved service, correct?
And this was approximately 2,300, something like that, a year?
Yeah, it says it in the back there.
Yeah, it was
right.
573 a quarter. or
Correct,
something.
right. That's correct.
Tony, would we be going ahead with this if we do not get the grant?
Well, if we don't get the grant, then I would present the information to you and you would make that determination.
So right now, we'll be approving it, assuming we get the grant.
Right,
Okay.
correct.
Right. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the signing on to the network, I guess, subject to us getting.
And they said they should be releasing the grant information anytime now. So I was hoping it was the time for this meeting, but it's not.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Let's see, is Chris Sorensen here yet? No. Okay. I would like to continue out of order, so I'd like a motion to move to item number 7 and continue from there. I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, number 7 are the receiving the NAA applications. Tony, can you describe that?
The Neighborhood Assistance Act. So let me get to my section here. So this is a program under the the State Department of Revenue Services, and OPM is also involved, and it's basically the town receives applications from agencies that are interested in applying for Neighborhood Assistance Act funding, and basically the town receives the applications, sends out the notices, receives the applications, holds the hearing, and then we send the applications to the state. The state approves or disapproves the applications. We really have no involvement in that, nor do we apply any funding to it. We're simply a mechanism that the state uses to notify area nonprofits of the process, hold a public hearing, and then send the applications up to the state. And there's a list of those applications here in your package.
And this is something we do every year?
We do every year, yeah. It's a yearly process.
Mm-hmm. Any questions, Lawrence?
Only to say the teen center has accessed funding previously through this program and has already initiated energy efficiency and solar panels, I believe. And
right. Actually,
it's a terrific program.
Is there a motion to approve the signing the agreement on the NAA applications?
So moved.
Second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next is, speaking of the Amity Teen Center, request.
First, we have to set the public hearing.
Right, you have to set the public hearing, right?
Sorry, okay. So is that we need a motion to set it? Okay. I'll make a motion that we schedule the public hearing on the NAA applications for June 11th, 2014.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? I have a question. What happened? Do we actually conduct the hearing?
Mm-hmm.
So we need time.
Okay, great. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Joe's.
Yeah. Excuse me for one moment. I think we will move to item number 9 if there's no objection. I need to step out for a moment. Oh, I don't need to step out. Okay. Okay, item number 8. Amity Teen Center requests to waive building permit fees for solar. Tony?
Yes. It's pretty self-explanatory, but the Amity Teen Center is looking to have the Board of Selectmen waive building permit fees for their solar installation. And this is something that we have done in the past, if I remember correctly, right, Jerry?
Yes.
And it has a cost there of $320.20.
We do it for most town
We do.
agencies. I mean,
Town
it's sort of
agencies and
I know we have to do it,
quasi-governmental agencies, right?
Yeah.
But you have to approve
Yeah,
that.
I understand.
We still collect the state fee that we pass through to
Right.
the state.
Is there a motion to approve the request to waive the building permit fees for solar installation at the Amity Teen Center?
So moved.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
And regardless, they have to pay the $5.20
That's right.
for the state.
That's right. The state doesn't let you waive that.
So they're not gonna. Now we gotta figure that one out.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Tony, Administrative Officer, Director of Finance report.
Okay.
All over the place.
Okay, this is our monthly report through April of 2014. There's a budgetary surplus of just under $50,000 for the end of the year. Some highlights for you, that leaves our fund balance at 9.6% of our annual budget. A few highlights for you. Tax revenue is projected a surplus of $80,000. The intergovernmental revenue is a surplus of about $140,000, mainly due to $120,000 town road aid, which we've discussed in the past, that we hadn't budgeted for last year. Department revenues are a shortfall of $748,000. There's some line items that have a surplus of $32,000, but there's a golf, as we've discussed in the past, golf revenues are short $779,000. Interest income is projected to run a shortfall of $25,000. On expenses, Country Club of Woodbridge is projecting a surplus of, again, due to golf operations, $365,000. That's mainly due to having half a year of expenditures. We've discussed that in the past. The center building is projected to experience a surplus of about $16,000, largely due to savings in natural gas in that building, and we've saved a great deal of money there for converting from oil to gas in that building. Police officer overtime is currently at $68,000 over budget, largely due to shortage in personnel. We are continuing to monitor this account, and right now we are still planning to cover that surplus within the police department budget, as there's some, when you have a shortage in personnel, you have wage accounts that have surpluses. So that's continue to monitor that closely. Waste management, a surplus of $75,000, primarily due to some reduced tonnage in recycling, solid waste, and finally, employee benefits are experience a surplus of about $60,000. One item that I did not put in here that I wanted to just briefly review with you is the leak in the back of the firehouse. We had applied for insurance reimbursement for that, and the insurance company has, at this time anyway, indicated that they will not cover it. So it is, our licensed environmental professional has indicated that it was improper installation. So we have to pursue that. And so while we hopefully will eventually receive reimbursement for the cost that we're incurring, we have to initially fund that. So I will have to do that at the next meeting. I'm currently working on a budget now, and we'll have the full scope of that as soon as I can.
You have an idea?
Yeah, I'm not sure 100% at this point. I'd hate to speculate on a figure and then, you know.
This is that same issue with the...
It's the oil water.
The oil water separator, correct.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I can tell you that the oil water separator tank itself has to be replaced. And that's...
Has the installer been contacted?
Yes.
Okay.
So
And what seems to be the response from?
We're waiting to hear. There'd be ultimately it's Newfield Construction that was responsible for that installation.
And I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
our town attorney is taking care of that, as well as challenging the denial of coverage by our insurance
Right,
company.
that's correct.
So you're going after both
Yeah.
ends.
Yeah.
So as soon as definitely by the June meeting, we'll have information on that in terms of full scope and budget, and could even have our environmental engineer come if you want to have him present on it.
Is there any work needed to be done now, or everything can wait? When does the work for the...
We want to do the work as soon as it makes sense to do the work. As soon as we hear from the installer, you know, before we cover it up and replace everything.
So there's no necessity, they're not
Well,
saying it needs to be pulled right now, it needs to be, there's a little bit of...
DEP is not saying that. We want to, of course, get it up as soon as possible, because the fire department needs to use their, but it's not,
So
they're
we're
not
not on their
saying.
timetable, we're on ours at least.
Right, correct.
And the sanitarian's report was very clear about the improper installation.
Correct, right.
In many regards.
Many areas, not
Many
just one.
regards. It was.
Is there an environmental impact?
There's, currently we've just identified a some soil remediation around the area of the spill.
But we don't know the extent of that yet. Or do
We haven't heard back the extent of it. The groundwater, we haven't heard the extent of.
Okay.
That's where we're waiting for too. So that sort of has some financial implications, at least in the short term. So I wanted to bring that up.
revenue shortfall and
And the-
expense surplus is 414,756, right? For the
For the
golf
golf operations, right, that's right.
Still down 414.
That's right.
Any numbers by just country club numbers as far as the last month or two goes?
We
How
have
they're,
a presentation coming up on that.
Deke will be here
and
to
Deke
talk
will be able to.
he's gonna give us numbers? Have they been reported to you or?
We're waiting to get the financials in. As soon as I have them, I can certainly send them to you.
Okay.
The
So you-
April financial should be out any day now.
Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Please help yourselves to cake during the recess. The delay in the meeting and the recess is because with respect to the Beecher Road School renovation project, there were a few last-minute issues that arose just this afternoon, and we believe now they are entirely resolved, and we didn't want to go forward presenting to the board unless we were sure they were resolved. So I believe that's where we are. Please help yourselves to cake. And I will move that we now return to item number 1 on the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
We're going back to item number 1. I know, it's a
One more cake?
tricky agenda.
One more cake?
I'm all set.
Okay. Susan, you seconded? Although,
Yes, I did.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, item number 1 on the agenda was slightly delayed, but is now happily ready to go forward, and this is the Beecher Road School renovation project contract. And I do want to say again how important this renovation project is for the school and for the town. Beecher Road School, as everyone here knows, is one of the top performing schools in the state, and I dare say probably in the country. And under the direction of the superintendent, Dr. Stella, and Mrs. Prisco, the principal, and all the terrific teachers and faculty and staff, we have a wonderful asset for the town and a terrific, terrific school. But as much as we all value the school, we have not totally kept up with the structure of the building. We've been very vigilant about education and learning, but it's really time to bring the building up to par with where the educational experience is. The school was built in 1960. It's more than 50 years old. As I always say, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it does need some changes. So since 1997, there have been 3 separate building committees looking at the needed improvements at Beecher Road School. And I want to thank all of them again, the members of every one of those committees. They put in many, many, many hours to try to get to the right place on this. The most recent building committee I know has spent endless hours. I've seen many of them myself in the last year, and I want to thank the members of that committee, particularly Chairman Jeff Kaufman has spent hundreds of hours working on this and helping us get it to completion. Sheila McCrevin, as secretary, has kept the meetings going and made sure everybody stayed focused. And also thank you to Andy Esposito, Greg Coyne, and Jason Fannenbecker, who served on the committee. What we're going to do this evening is review the contract. The Board of Selectmen members received a draft contract about a week ago, and our attorney, Joe Dornfried, is going to describe the highlights of the contract, the main points of the contract, and any changes that have been made since you all saw the draft, so that you'll be aware of changes that have been made since then. Tony Genovese will review the budget contract, and John Rice of AKF Engineering will review the scope of work, the allowances, and the energy savings guarantee, which is an integral part of the contract. I do want to thank everyone who has worked on this contract, everyone at ESG and AKF. It's been a very intense project. It's a very large project and complicated. And Joe, particular thanks to you for getting us to this point over this last week. I know it's been 24/7, and we really appreciate it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe Dornfried.
Good evening, and I'm Joe Dornfried from Carmody, Torrance, Sandeck, and Hennessy. The contract that Ellen has described is a little different than contracts you may have done in the past. This is a turnkey contract, so it's not a situation where you've done a design and you've hired someone to build to your design, or something where you've spec'd it out in total, so it's 100% done, and you're just going to hire someone to construct it. And there wasn't a traditional RFP in that sense. What this is a contractor with ESG is like a general contractor. They're responsible for designing it, engineering it, procuring the equipment, installing it, providing the labor, managing the project, commissioning and testing it. So the entirety of the contract, if you will, is with ESG. They hire the subcontractors, and they're going to do it all for a fixed price. There is an energy savings component, which John Rice will address with you. But just if you step back, ESG is, if you will, your general contractor who's responsible to the town to deliver the renovations that have been agreed to in the scope document. And again, we'll have John explain a little bit about the scope. The major change from the agreement that was sent out to you when we were 11th hour still working our way through it has to do with the change order process, in particular with environmental conditions and hazardous materials. The original contract allocated that responsibility so that the town was responsible for any mold that was in the building, because that was behind the walls and people couldn't do any diligence, but ESG was going to take on the balance of the environmental responsibility. Through the continuing negotiations, it became clear that ESG wasn't comfortable with that and hadn't priced that in their fixed price. And again, this is a fixed price. It doesn't allow them to get a change order to come back and say, we didn't expect that, we didn't expect this. So what we've done is we analyzed it on behalf of the town. It's not unusual for the town as the owner of the building to be responsible for that which is concealed or unknown. So we've gone through the reports that, or ESG and the ACAV have gone through reports that have been provided to ESG. There's been some diligence done, and to the extent that ESG's been informed of what the conditions are, whether it's asbestos or other items that were going to require remediation as part of the work that they're renovating, then ESG is going to be responsible for that. But if it's something that's unknown or concealed, so that they break through a wall and they open it and they see something there that wasn't part of the reports, then the town is responsible for that. So we've allocated that responsibility in that way. ESG's agreed to pay the first $10,000 of those concealed items, if you will. So if something comes up, they'll just handle it. They're not looking to address the smaller items, but if it becomes over $10,000, there's a process under the contract where they'll report that to the town, provide a change order, and then there's a basis for them to get compensated for that. They accept the schedule risk, we take the financial risk. So that's the major change, if you will. The mold, if you will, exception has been expanded to include concealed hazardous materials. And asbestos is likely the most prevalent one, and we've had reports done on that through the years, but again, you can't tell what's behind the walls, and when they start to do these renovations, they're going to have to address them if it's necessary to meet code or otherwise. So that's the major change. The other part of this, why I'm on change orders, that hasn't changed is if the town delays the work, or if there's a what they call legally force majeure, an act of God, then the town is going to give schedule relief to, or ESG is entitled to claim schedule relief for those things. But again, the way the contract is structured, ESG is supposed to handle these things. It manages itself. It doesn't come back to the town and say, gee, this was different than what I thought. They'll work it through their subcontractors and be responsible for managing to the bottom line for their part. So that was the main change. Other key features of the agreement are that the town's going to pay them through a monthly progress payment, depending on how they perform the work. It's going to be a 5% retainage that's held back from that, so you have some protection that also is covered by a payment and performance bond that ESG is going to provide. So as far as the town is concerned, it has a mechanism that looks at not only a fixed price, paying that price based on progress of the work, a 5% retainage, and a payment and performance bond issued by a surety. All those things are typical or traditional ways in which the owner gets protected. There's also a process in the contract that contemplates a project management structure. The reason I highlight that as a key feature of the contract is because even though you've hired ESG as a general contractor, you want to have people who are going to be on the site, attending meetings, receiving reports, be informed, so that if something was to occur, you've got a early warning system, a way to address it. There's going to be decisions that have to be made in the field on a daily basis, and you want to know what's happening, and you also want to be able to inform the school personnel. So the contract does contemplate ESG and the town having a regular meetings, reportings, and interaction, and the town is considering having a clerk of the works that's provided for that. They've also contracted with AKF and Newman Architects to provide that support, along with the folks at the school and the town who will be available to, just in the normal course of business, to attend to issues. With regard to, I'll say, some of the legal items, if you will, that are in the contract, the contract does allow ESG to perform the work this summer, they're going to do the work this summer, the summer of 2015, and allow them to go into 2016 if necessary. However, if they go past January 1, 2017, there's liquidated damages. And again, the intent is not to penalize them for being late. It's trying to make sure you have some schedule integrity after an appropriate cushion of time. The liquidated damages would be $100,000 for the first 2 weeks, and if it goes beyond 2 weeks, it's $10,000 a day, capped by 10%. Again, those are negotiated numbers, but the cap is typical for construction contracts. ESG is going to provide you with a 1-year warranty. That's, if you will, from each item of renovation after they complete it, because this is not a total rebuild of the school. There's specific discrete items that, as they complete them, the town accepts them, and the 1-year warranty runs from there. Those warranties from ESG will also be supplemented by manufacturer's warranties. So whatever the manufacturer is providing, the town will get the benefit of that. It flows through, but ESG, as far as has a 1-year obligation on each one of these items of work. And then overall, the ESG liability, if you will, is capped at the contract price. So they've negotiated, again, not unexpected, a cap of 100% of what you're paying them under the contract for their liability. There are certain exclusions to that, like indemnities if someone gets hurt. That's not something where the town's responsible for. You also have insurance that covers some of these items. And that there's also for the energy savings component, there's a warranty bond that they have for that, which is, again, a third-party issuer is going to support the future savings. So that's the key features.
Are there questions for Joe now on the features of the contract, or would you prefer to hear all the pieces, the budget, the scope of work, and allowance before asking questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
Just when you talked about the town will be paying that based on the work being done, who determines who is standing behind the town or looking for the town's interest as far as what work has been done, so we know? You said percentage-wise we'll be paying them based on work that is completed.
The project management structure that I referred to earlier has a owner's representative for each renovation measure that represents the town. The town appoints that individual. It may be AKF, it may be Newman Architects, it may be another person that's appropriate. The application process for ESG is that they're going to submit an invoice that's going to include the progress, and it's going to be certified and signed off by that owner's rep. So someone from the town side is going to have to review it, sign off on it, and then it goes to Tony for payment. So ESG is going to coordinate that, so it's going to be one of these things where, if you will, a pre-bill will be submitted. As part of these meetings, it wouldn't be unusual for them to go through the invoice, so that it's really not a administrative burden, it's also just part of the ordinary course. But if they know a requisition's coming up, that's going to be probably topic number one in their weekly meeting. And again, part of this is it's going to be heavy construction during the summer. There'll be some stuff that may be planned outside of the summer, but I would think that people will be very engaged in that process during the summer months.
I just want to add to that, regardless of whether we have an additional clerk of the works, and we do have people from Beecher Road School and from Town Hall will be at the meetings, we have determined that for every item in the contract, either John Rice will be the person who signs off on behalf of the town before Tony gets the invoice, or Newman Architects, depending on who is responsible for that element of the work. So
we have contracts with AKF and Newman already?
Yes.
Signed?
Yes.
Yeah, that was part of the.
A while ago.
Yeah, I think,
Before.
that was before our time.
Okay. Just, yeah.
Um,
No fee.
Any other questions for Joe right now? No, if not, next we were gonna have Tony talk about the budget.
Is Chuck gonna do this?
Or, okay, we could do that way. John, you want to do the scope next? Sure. Okay. I have to go. That's fine.
We've talked about the scope. We've done many presentations about the scope of work. I'm just going to go over the items that have changed since we've last done a presentation. These were the overall scope items that are in the project. The final contract with ESG came down to 20 scope items. We ended up pulling out the wind turbine, the Fuss and O'Neill work. This was site work, site water drainage that was infiltrating towards the underground, towards the school. This has been pulled out of the project, and this will be carried on in another as a capital project, but not as part of ESG's scope of work. So the only other items that came out of the project was ECM number 11, the pool cover. This scope of work became a little cumbersome since it's a renovation project. One thing that when the pool cover comes out and goes back, it got the bleachers wet. Another thing is that the flags had to be removed from the pool. There was a safety concerns that came up. So this is one that we decided not to go forward, and this was removed from the contract as well. And the only last one is the solar PV panels. This is something that just came down below the ledger out of ESG's scope of work. It's going to remain in the project. There will be solar panels and solar power as part of the project. But this is something that the town is going to contract directly with the solar provider. There's a lot of different types of structures that may be beneficial to the town that couldn't be provided under ESG's purview. So everything else that we spoke about, the lighting and the lighting controls, all the mechanical upgrades, the building management systems, everything else remains in the scope of work. Yes,
Can I ask a question?
please.
I understand that 11 and 21 and 22 were,
And 15, yeah.
yeah, but I wanted to ask about 15. Is there an allowance in the contract then for the town to do that
Yes, that same amount of funding that was in the contract for it,
Okay.
along with the overheads and markup, that was all brought down below the line. That's still in the overall bond amount.
Correct, and that's correct.
Okay.
You'll see it in the budget.
Yeah. So it's still under the town's purview to do that work, but just not under ESG's contract.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay. There's a separate document, an Exhibit B, that is the measurement and verification document. As Joe has mentioned, there is guaranteed savings as part of this contract. So I just wanted to go over some of the concepts that you'll see in that exhibit, and I've put them all in this one table, and I'll explain how this works. The way the guarantee savings work, you start with a baseline amount. So the baseline year for this contract was the year 2011 to 2012. That's when the school was still using fuel oil. So that baseline year, you were using about consistently 1.1 million kilowatt hours of electricity, and you were using about 59,000 gallons of fuel oil. So that's your baseline energy amount. Now, in the M&V document, there's an adjusted baseline because, let me step back. That's how many gallons of oil. This is the equivalent amount of gas, therms of gas, equaling that same amount of oil. That's the equivalent heat output of natural gas. That's how many therms of gas you would have to burn to get the equivalent amount of gallons of oil. So that's your baseline. Now, the adjusted baseline is we're adding air conditioning to the school, and there's a pool dehumidification unit that doesn't work right now. We're putting a new one in. So the amount of electricity is going to go up. So this is what we call the adjusted baseline. After the project, this is going to be what we anticipate you to be consuming 1.586 million kilowatt hours of electricity a year and about 131 or 132 therms of gas. Oil will be phased out as part of the project. In terms of cost, this is what you're currently spending here. It's about approximately $400,000 a year. This was your baseline. The adjusted baseline after we add the air conditioning will be up around $573,000. This is ESG's guaranteed savings, $210,000. So the guarantee is, after the project is done and all the ECMs are in, they're guaranteeing that your bill will be no more than $363,000 a year, where right now you're doing $387,000. So it's kind of a guarantee, and we expect it to be lower than this. This does not include the PV, and this is only the guarantee. We expect this to be considerably lower than this number, but this is the energy savings guarantee. So the way the guarantee works is that these baseline numbers that I just went through, they do get to be normalized for weather. So like this past winter, it was a very cold winter. So whereas this was your baseline here, each year it gets normalized for what the actual weather was that year. So year to year, there'll be a normalization for weather. And then also your baseline costs, which we've put here, these are your baseline costs for electric and your baseline costs for fuel oil. And that will be the comparison each year. We're comparing against what you used to pay, which was this, and the fuel oil is going to escalate 2% each year. And then we're going to compare it to what you actually pay each year. And that's how you arrive at that it has to achieve at least that amount of guaranteed savings. And what the measurement and verification procedure is going to be, the school is going to submit monthly utility bills to ESG. And ESG is going to monitor the cost throughout the year. And if they see any irregularities, they'll come and they'll do some further investigation. The school's going to be obligated to notify ESG of any changes affecting energy, such as different scheduling, different occupancy, any new equipment that they may put in. We have put the requirement on ESG to solicit that information, but the school will have to provide it. And then finally, each year, ESG is going to issue an annual savings report, and it's going to detail what the actual, how they calculated the savings. We'll review that report, and if it doesn't achieve that, they'll write a check. Hopefully, it will exceed that each year, and it will all be contained in the report.
John, can I ask you a question?
Please.
So on the baseline,
Yes.
is it just the dehumidifier unit that caused a 35, actually a little higher than 35% increase on our baseline?
And the air conditioning.
So the combination of it not
the full
producing,
and the dehumidification unit.
and that's it looks like about between 35 and 40% increase that we saw on the
about
baseline.
33% increase. That's right. And we ran calculations parallel to ESG, and then we agree with the numbers.
Okay.
The only thing that I will say is that we are using very high efficiency equipment, and we shouldn't actually achieve these. We should beat these numbers. But that's the baseline we'll be judging against.
John, will you also be talking about the allowances?
Yes. There are allowances in the contract for 3 items, and we'll go through those. In the roofing work, there was some of the roofing materials are damaged. The underdecking, you have the roofing on top, then you have the underdecking that's visible in the classroom. Some of the previous presentations we showed where that got moisture damage. ESG has included in their contract about 3,150 square feet of replacement of that underdecking. Anything that exceeds that amount, there's an allowance in the contract for anything more than that. They've made an assumption about 10% of it will have to be replaced. Anything above that will start coming out of the allowance. So it's the underdecking, and then it's also the wood nailers on the perimeter of the building. So those are the 2 allowances for the roofing material. The next one is the microturbine. As we said, the microturbine's a generator. It uses gas and it produces electricity. We've spoke with Dr. Stella, and the school will get a benefit if that could be used in an emergency basis. When there's a blackout of power, they could use that to feed certain areas. Dr. Stella tells the story of how it's this big ordeal to notify all the parents and get everyone out of the school within 45 minutes upon loss of power. So we want to use the microturbine to power all the life safety equipment. And if the life safety equipment's on, the children can stay in the school. Keep the lighting on in the corridors, and then keep an area of refuge, which is going to be the cafeteria and the library. That area will keep power on in those areas so he could keep kids in the school longer in the case of a power outage. Now, we had to do certain circuitry changes of the electrical system in the school. That wasn't in the original contract, but we've developed a scope. AKF has estimated that scope of work to be about $75,000. So that allowance is in the contract, $75,000 for that work to pick up those emergency electric circuits. So that's the second allowance.
Can I ask you a question, John?
Sure.
Microturbine?
Yes.
Originally, the original presentation talked about using the kickback from the microturbine to help to heat the pool.
Yes, that's it.
So we're still going to be doing that,
Still.
but now we're also being able to funnel some of that extra.
That's right.
To the
That's
rest.
right. The microturbine produces electricity as its primary generation, but in the process it produces waste heat. And the only way it's efficient is if you use the waste heat. So all that's the same. We're using the waste heat in the summertime for the pool water heating and any domestic water heating in the building. In the wintertime, it'll also contribute to space heating. Yeah, so that stays. The final allowance is for the canopies. There's a $200,000 allowance for canopies on the north entrance, the south entrance. There's a request for one over the cafeteria entry door, and then a small 3-foot one along the K-wing connecting the north canopy to the cafeteria entry canopy. Newman Architects, they're designing that. Their initial rendering is out now. They're getting that priced, and they're going to price each one separately, so the town will consider, how much of that they'll purchase, or if they can get it all for $200,000. So those are the three allowances that are in the contract. We're good there? Any additions?
Now, the key feature is if there's, take the canopies, for example, if you want to spend more than $200,000, then the town has to come up with the additional funds. If the price is less than $200,000, the town gets the money back. So the allowance is not within the fixed price, if you will. It's in there as an amount, but it can be subject to adjustment based upon whatever the final scope is. So it's a little bit of a decision that has to be made based upon what's actually going to be installed.
200,000 into the original renderings we saw of just kind of a small canopy in the front. It was more of just an
I
overhang.
don't remember the last rendering. I think one of the last presentation we had at the town meeting, we had one of Newman's most recent renderings. And it was a pretty large canopy. Yeah.
The original one was just kind of a wooden, very plain, not very large.
That's it, though, it's the wooden one in the front.
It's wooden, it's plain, but I think it's pretty large.
It's large.
Okay.
Other questions for Sean?
I have a question for John. Not that I think this would happen, but if there's a structural change to the building that changes the footprint of the building, how does that change any of the guarantees, or what how do you segregate out that square footage somehow? How does that work?
You do. Yeah, any change, say you do a building addition.
God forbid, but go ahead.
So you do a building addition.
Right.
And, the energy impact of the building will be recalculated. ESG will do new, ESG has in their contract measurement and verification. So each year they're getting paid a certain amount of money to do these measurement and verification calculations. So anything that changes, they'll be recalculating, and they'll advise you what the energy impact will be on the building. But obviously, if you add a new addition, it's going to consume more energy, so it's going to be deducted from this amount here. So say you add a new addition and it incurs a $50,000
Right.
a year increase in energy. So now your baseline would go up another $50,000.
Okay. So it's just really that straightforward. It's not, if that wing, for instance, doesn't have any of the ECMs that are contemplated by this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If you add a wing and add all separate equipment, separately metered,
Right.
it wouldn't have any impact on this building unless there's some relationship with the project. If it's, I don't know, exposed a certain side of the building that didn't have exposure. But
Right.
any energy impact on the building, it could be as small as changing your hours.
Right.
Say
Well,
the
that I
school-
see is in the contract, but
Yes.
what I'm trying to understand is if there's something that really changes the footprint of the building.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That'll change, yeah.
Other questions?
So the few changes that were made or and even estimated for new business, has that affected or had any impact on the estimated energy savings?
Yes.
And to what level?
Yes, the original guaranteed energy savings was $253,000 a year. So the PV was the biggest one that came out of this number. I believe that was around $40,000, $35,000. You know, we still want to have the PV, still have it contribute to the energy, but it's out of their guarantee because it's they're not going to do that system. The pool cover, I believe, was $5,000, and the wind turbine was like $600. It wasn't much.
So that knocked us down to the 210.
Yes, the 210.
Okay, I think we'll move on to Tony doing the budget, and then if there are more questions, we can consider those.
Yeah, just one thing. Here's the budget. So the town will, has a cash flow. We've worked out with ESG, and we will be issuing short-term notes in July for what's anticipated to be the cash requirements for the first year of the contract. And then we'll decide next July whether to issue additional short-term notes based on where the project is at that point. The budget you have in front of you has the ESG contract amount, which is $12,172,238. Those are all of the scope items that John spoke about, including the allowances. The remaining items are part of the town's, is in the town's budget. These are the items the town has control over. Includes borrowing costs for access to financial markets, construction administration, which was mentioned earlier, for both AKF and Newman Architects. The PV solar array at $328,268 is also in that budget. Builder's risk insurance, $17,000, legal costs, and then a town contingency, which is a little over $500,000. So you can see the total project budget is $13,345,000, which is what our bond authorization is.
Any questions for Tony?
We've been over these numbers a lot.
We have.
Are there any other questions with respect to the contract? Anything else?
Just got one question that's kind of a follow-up to Lawrence's question. With no longer using the pool cover, we will see some change in, I mean, there was a cost obviously for the pool cover was in the initial plan, and it's quite the elaborate pool cover. It's, you know, it moves electronically. So I'm assuming there was a pretty hefty dollar amount based on that pool cover.
Those were already previously removed from.
So they took them out of the
Right,
number
those were already
before.
taken out of the contract before I presented this number. So it was the other
So it has been
before that was
removed.
higher.
Yeah, okay. As long as it's been removed.
Yep.
I don't know if this is for Tony, but now that I see this breakdown, prompts me to ask the question of, is commissioning involved in this?
Sorry, what?
Commissioning?
Absolutely.
And it's included in the 12,172,000?
Absolutely.
Anything else?
Yeah, I don't think this is long enough. It needs to be a little bit longer.
If there are no other questions, there's no need for an executive session. That was just put on the agenda because it's a special meeting and an excess of caution, since we couldn't add it if we needed it. So I will entertain a motion to authorize the first selectman to execute the contract that was distributed to the to the selectmen recently, with the changes that have been described today.
So,
Second.
Any other questions or discussions?
Gary's gonna review the whole thing before you sign it, correct?
No.
Sherry has,
Well, I've looked at it all along.
Okay.
I've been working with Joe.
Joe is our attorney on this.
With the exception of some of the changes that were made today, it's ready to go.
Okay.
And I can assure you, Joe has reviewed the contract.
Right.
But have you waited?
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Yay.
So if you all would like to, we thought it would be nice to have a picture of the whole board together, purportedly signing the contract. We don't have it to sign right this minute, but maybe we could all get together and... Yes, I've already offered it, and please help yourself to it. Betsy, you want to do that? Tell us where, or... And Jeff and Sheila, if you want to join us. Unfortunately, the Board of Ed people had to go back to a meeting back at Beecher.
Definitely, they should be.
We should look like this. Whatever you tell us. Sure, we can do it right here. Maybe should we just all get together here and... We're reconvening the meeting. And, I'm sorry?
The fire guys?
Yeah, yep. So as I think everyone can see, it was just, it was a major project. Not only is the project itself very big, but this was a complicated contract, and so many people worked so hard for so many hours, and it's a real tribute to our dedication to the school and the town. So it's really wonderful that this is done and it's on its way.
Just give me my copy back.
Okay, now we can go back to our regular order, and before we go to public comment, we'll go to item number 2, which is a presentation by the fire department. Chief Rowland, are you here? Do you want to describe what you're going to be showing us? Demonstration.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry we didn't get here earlier. Everybody usually gets to the cars at 7 o'clock. We'll come over. But about 2 months ago, it was brought to our attention about this Lucas 2 device. It's a what it is it does CPR. It's an automatic. It's basically like a thumper, and it depresses it when it gives you CPR. It gives you the correct depression of 2 inches, and it's highly effective, and it's actually another hand in the ambulance or on the scene. So you're not constantly using somebody for CPR. This thing is constantly giving you CPR, so it's actually giving you a better shot at surviving a heart attack or another medical issue like that. So what we're going to do tonight is we just want to show you what we got. The association purchased this with the fundraising that we've done over the past couple of years. We also, this device right here, we paid $13,125 for it. We also purchased a quad this past year, so we like to do different things like this. This is not going to be on the fire truck. This has already been in service for 2 weeks now. We put this on Medic 44. If we were to put this on a fire truck on an engine, really not everybody in Woodbridge would benefit from it. It would only benefit if we were on the scene, which doesn't happen a lot with medical. So we decided, for the best interest of the town, to put it on Medic 44. So the medic usually gets on scene 5, 6, 7 minutes. So it gives a good shot at using the device. So what we're going to do is we have a demo here tonight. We're going to go through it. We actually, the way the dummy's set up right now, Mike will go through it. It's a little bit small for its purposes, so that's why we have a couple phone books underneath it. But It usually doesn't, we usually wouldn't need that. The device is used for, it could be for an 8-year-old kid or 80 pounds and above. So this device really benefits everybody in Woodbridge, and it is a life safety device. So we thought it would be a good investment to purchase this, to put it on Medic 44 right now. So we're going to actually show it to you now. He's going to do it in slow motion, and he's going to do it really quick, and you're going to see it, how quick it actually goes.
I'm sure it does.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Mike Morganski. I'm one of the medics that have been here since 1997. One of the ones that are assigned to Medic 44 by AMR. Basically, the Lucas device is used in a cardiac arrest situation. The person has collapsed. They no longer are breathing and they no longer have a pulse. At that point in time, your first responders automatically come in and they start CPR. And what the new cardiac standards of cardiopulmonary resuscitation have said is that effective CPR, continuous CPR, is what really needs to be done. And when you're doing it with people get tired. There are situations where you have to extricate people from houses. You have to stop those things, and this device allows you not have to do that. The battery will give you about 45 minutes on a full charge. It's enough to run a cardiac arrest and get to the hospital. There is a subsequent battery with that. If I could be kind enough to have a volunteer.
I thought that's why you brought it to me. Right?
Joe So basically, your first responder will come in and they'll automatically start CPR as Teddy's going to demonstrate. CPR does not need to be stopped when the device comes into play. So if the device is not on scene, there's an AED. They'll call for the AED. In this building, there's actually an AED. The AED would come in, the AED would be put into place. The AED stays on at that point in time. There's no reason to take it off. CPR is going. We'll turn around and we'll open up the Lucas device at that point. We'll immediately activate it. We'll go ahead and we'll place the backboard underneath the shoulders. Very simply, we roll. And just for demonstration purposes, we're going to do that. The device will come out of the bag at this point. It's already been activated. Very quickly, we'll take it. We'll latch one side down. It's clicked. We latch the other side down. The device is now into place and ready to be activated. We will then check for proper location on the chest. We will secure the suction cup, and then we will start automatic compressions at that point.
Right.
Now, your first responder is relieved to help me do other things.
It looked like it was about
The medic
less than a
needs
minute.
to, so what do you think, 30 seconds? 45 seconds to get the thing going? Now, your first, yeah, I mean, so if I wasn't talking and demonstrating all this, it probably would have even been faster. So now I have the hands of the deputy chief to turn around and to give me, okay, would you please set me up an IV? We need to get a longboard and we need to start moving towards the, towards the ambulance or whatever. So that, basically that's the device. We demonstrated the device at the Ava Block Fire Prevention Day. We actually ran the device for close to 6 hours on electrical AC current, continuously. So there is that option, and the ambulances are equipped for inverters, so if both battery was to go, it need to be prolonged for some reason, we could actually plug it into the inverter.
There's about 75 of them in the state right now, and they're actually, towns are buying them, and they're going out roughly 4 a month. So it is a popular thing that everybody's going to. And as you can see, as he picks it up and he's walking with a patient,
Not quite how you're gonna walk with the patient, it's gonna be head to foot, but, I mean, so that everybody can see the device.
Great. You know, I wanted to remind the board that the purchase of this device was something we had in our budget, in the first iteration of our budget this year, and in trying to keep the budget under control, it was something that we thought we would postpone because it is cutting-edge technology and not something that every town has. And I want to thank the fire department for taking the lead on this and expending your funds to be sure that Woodbridge is in the forefront and on the cutting edge for this life-saving device. We appreciate it very much.
so just just so everybody knows, what the firefighters do up and beyond the calls is we also do fundraisers throughout the year, and so we can do special things like this throughout the year, and we do things, usually we do 1 or 2 things every year, so these guys really go up and beyond just going to fire calls. They actually spend the time and do fundraising and this and that, so we can buy stuff like this where it doesn't impact the budget. So these guys deserve a lot of credit for what they do.
To everyone.
If I may, just for 1 second, tomorrow, American Medical Response, along with your first responders, members of the fire department and the police department, will be at Amity High School from the start of the school session till the last session of the day. I believe there's 6. We will be training all the students that are in school tomorrow during physical education class in hands-on compression-only CPR. We anticipate to get through about 600 students in the 6 to 7 hours that we have to work tomorrow. So, and I'd just like to thank the town for the commitment to being a heart-safe community. We have about 17 AEDs throughout the community. The biggest thing now with the lead of the town was the assisted living facilities that you have now. They're starting to put AEDs into their facilities, and that's a big plus too. So from my point of view, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the fire department for their cooperation over the years.
Thank you again to the fire department.
Thank you, all of you. I was a police officer for 25 years here, and I retired in 1999. I know you. I don't know any of, no, I know you. I don't know any of these guys, but thank you very much because you gave me my back. When I was doing CPR and I was saying, oh poop, oh poop, oh poop, these guys came and saved me. Thank you for your
No, I in-serviced, the police department in a matter of about 10 minutes on their duty shifts. So that was no expense on part of the town either.
So the PD's been trained on it, we've been trained on it, so.
And all the medics are trained on it.
Right.
Great.
Orange also has one, Bethany does not have one, so we're working. I'm not sure if Derby has one or not.
Well, thank you again very much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Very
Terrific.
impressive, thank you.
It's great. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, since it's after 7:30 and we've actually begun public comments, we'll continue. Is there anyone who's never been here before who'd like to make a public comment? Okay. Sure. Yeah. And please say your name and address.
My name is Peter Slapma. My address is 61 Lakeview Terrace in Derby. I'm a lifelong resident. I'd like to start off by thanking everyone here
for providing the city of Derby with a animal control officer. As you know, the city's only 5 square miles. It's a small city in the state. But that said, the population of the city has gone up quite a bit over the last 2 years or so. And with that has come a lot of neglect, a lot of strays, animal abuse, and I know this because my cousin is Ansonia Animal Control Officer, and she sometimes overlaps the city, as does the Shelton Animal Control Officer, when they can't get an animal control officer for a specific case. I have friends of mine who are police officers, and I've noticed over the last almost year that it seems as if it's taken quite a while in some instances for animals to be caught. I have a police scanner, so I hear the back end of when there's an animal complaint. We have a stray dog or a roaming dog or a vicious dog, and then they make a call to try to capture the dog, and it takes a while, and they say, well, call Ansonia or call Shelton. I don't know why that is. Again, we're grateful to have the
the town of Woodbridge step up and help out, because the last animal control officer in the city was just a disaster. I'm sure you read the reports. So I would strongly encourage this board, if possible, to make available an animal control officer, maybe an additional animal control officer for calls. Again, I'm an animal lover. I love all animals, dogs especially, and when I hear stories about they couldn't catch the dog and it wound up struck by a car or it caused an accident, it's disturbing for me. I mean, I don't have children. My dogs are my children. So, but again, I wanted to thank everyone here for providing our small city with the help that you have.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Anyone else who? Come on, please.
Hi, I'll be brief, which actually I have a staff person every time he says that. I know it's going to be a long time. My name's Carla Weil. I've been a resident in town for the past 8 years. I live at 1144 Racebrook Road. I just wanted to extend my appreciation for the charrette that I attended this weekend. I've been looking for different ways to get involved in the town since I moved here, and I really appreciated the opportunity to have public input. I thought it was very well run. The information that was provided was very interesting, and it was a nice positive way to get to meet some of the other folks in town, frankly, but also to really get to some of the goals that we want to see in town and development. And I thought it was very well run, and just want to support more kinds of events like that. So, thanks for coming.
There's actually another one next week.
Good evening, Donald Salato, 3 Knollwood Road. I want to just amplify on Mr. Stockmall's point. I don't know. I know very vaguely that our professional who heretofore was regarded by her peers with the highest praise before this unfortunate occurrence. She finds herself charged with some kind of crime. My understanding is that the town has finally taken a new tack and seen fit to engage a very able, good man, an attorney, Rob Burke, to try to work something out. Whatever injustice has been occasioned to Karen Lombardi, I hope can be made up with a restoration of her good name and the resumption of the proper functioning of this facility. If she's committed some kind of offense, that's up for other authorities to decide, but in my opinion, the greater injustice and the real crime has been visited upon these creatures who have suffered in a true professional's absence, and we're fond of regarding them as our best friends, but we have not been their best friends. My second point concerns the report which has been released and which you're going to discuss regarding the consultant's analysis and recommendations regarding the disposition and uses of the Country Club of Woodbridge property. It's always interesting when some outsider tells you your history. The report engages in some fairly well-known historical tidbits. Talks about the CCW being founded some 60 years ago. Well, some 60 years ago when it was founded, it was the WCC. Just a little historical correction that I think should be noted. And also, the Malone and McBroom report, by the way, artfully positioned in tonight's agenda after public discussion, so the Woodbridge listening part does not permit the people to speak as to the distillation of the Woodbridge Listens endeavor. But getting back to history, which is omitted in the consultant's report. When the Woodbridge Country Club found itself veering towards extremists, it solicited an opportunity of the then constituted Town Plan and Zoning Commission for an exploratory meeting. And the exploratory meeting took place quite a while before the nosedive of the country club. And they met with Town Plan and Zoning and brooded the possibility of mixed-use cluster development on their property. At that time, we patiently and politely listened to them and patiently and politely told them we didn't think it was appropriate for the site. We didn't think it was in keeping with the spirit of the then Town Plan of Conservation and Development. We didn't think it was appropriate given the fact that we had already implemented by the Woodbridge Village District and the Woodbridge Village Associates Project precisely that use that they were recommending as a way to bail themselves out. Furthermore, we regarded it as a extremely deleterious and dangerous change for the worse in an otherwise perfectly nice residential neighborhood, and thereby altering forever its character. And getting a little bit back to history, one cannot help but recall the words of George Santayana: one who forgets the past is condemned to repeat it, and fanaticism consists in redoubling your effort when you have forgotten your aim. In speaking of aim and preordained results, I have the Friday, April 11th, 2014 edition of the Woodbridge Town News, and frankly remain very distressed that the Town Plan and Zoning Commission is on record, and I quote, "Town Plan and Zoning believes that limited development on the Country Club of Woodbridge site is appropriate as long as the majority of the land is preserved as open space." Now, how can the body that will ultimately have the most say in the disposition of this property and any zoning that may be required to implement that use be predisposed with this quotation in a publication when there is no application pending before it yet? I believe that that was a highly inappropriate statement, and it brings further skepticism and ill repute on the conduct of these entire proceedings. Thank you.
Evening. First Selectman Ellen, Scalatar, town personnel people, select people, Mrs. Shaw. Sorry you had to answer the phone so many times this week. My name is Laura Torrance. I live at 17 Vernon Court. Like Karen Lombardi, I have dedicated a good portion of my life to caring for animals and the rights of animals and their organizations. I'm a member of the Farm Rescue, Humane Society of the United States, the Humane Animal Farming, the Anti-Vivisection Committee, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, the Physicians for Responsible Medicine, the Connecticut Humane Society, and the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals and Pig Rescue, to name a few. 18 years ago, I had the opportunity to move to Woodbridge. We selected this township because of its good schools, open space, and abundance in wildlife. Soon after I moved, I started to visit the Bradley Road shelter. I can honestly say, did not connect with many of the town's animal lovers until the last few years. I began to become very clear that the success of the shelter with its subpar facility was successful due to the leadership of one person, Karen Lombardi. She shared her vast experience of wild and domestic animals with whomever stopped by and showed an interest. The short-term safe haven for these animals was a magnet for the community and the neighborhood. If you do not know her, any of you here, and her work, I invite you to meet her. Then you may know why so many of us in the community would like to see her back. Presently, we pay a cobbled-together staff and her salary while she's on leave. A well-run facility requires leadership, something we do not have right now. The current staff is dedicated and caring but cannot administer the program as Karen has in the past. Please, there has been a great lack of transparency and abundance of provocation, and while I see well-meaning adults here, I see no action. A lack of action is resulting in a waste of resources and money, and none of us are going to forget what's going on there, and we really need all of you to really find a solution, and quickly, because our town is suffering and the residents are suffering as a result of it. And last, the animals, which seem to not even be on the page right now. Thank you for your time yet again.
Thank you, Laura.
Good evening. My name is Linda Nato. I live at 23 Metler Street, Woodbridge. My comments this evening pertain to the physical building condition of our district animal shelter. The water filtration system has been repaired, yet it is still letting discolored water through. The back entrance gets flooded during heavy rains, and water pours into the back of the building and just stays there until someone sweeps it out. The cat room is in need of screens so they can get fresh air, and a reconforming of the cat room would probably help to alleviate some of the problems. The cages outside for our dogs have gravel as their flooring. This can be very stressful on the dogs since one Rottweiler we have has a bad leg. The stones make it difficult to clean and hose down, making for unsanitary conditions. Perhaps poured concrete could be an alternative. The entrance to our shelter is dreary and not curb appeal worthy. Stray trash and leaves have accumulated against fences. A rake could solve that problem in an instant. We know Leland Torrance was asked to evaluate and make recommendations for improvements. We hope something positive comes from his efforts. We would love to have our shelter something to be proud of, clean and inviting to all who visit us. We think the care of our animals should come first, and hope that the improvements suggested need to be made we will see that come to fruition. I also wanted to add, too, that a lot of my constituents have been calling me up and asking me how come the shelter is closed during open hours. I myself had gone there after 10 o'clock, and all the cars were there, and the doors were locked. My constituents have told me same thing. Open hours, no one's there. There should be a note on a door saying they have a road call and will be back as soon as possible, but it seems to be going downhill. And lastly, I hope we don't forget that our animals come first, and I will do anything I can in my power to help you get this done. Thank you.
And last but not least, if you'd be kind enough to just spread that around, I apologize. I got it wrong in the printer. Cheryl Lipson, Brookwood Drive. After the Board of Selectmen took over the management of District Animal Control in June 2013,
I attended a meeting and suggested the board members visit the shelter to get some understanding of how it functions and to determine what was needed to continue operating the shelter as a safe haven for the animals that are brought there, as well as an inviting environment for people who visit and might potentially adopt. It is my understanding that to date, the only board members to visit the facility have been Beth Heller and Susan Jacobs. That information is extremely disappointing. Since Karen, if I'm wrong, please just, it's not true? That's wonderful, and I'm glad to know it. Thank you. I was not made aware of that. Thank you. Since Karen Lombardi was placed on paid administrative leave in June 2013, the condition of the shelter has greatly deteriorated. I had met with Tony Genovese in the fall to discuss what the facility needed and what monies had been approved to address these needs. I was given a breakdown of money that was going to be used to remediate the problems at the shelter. The amount totaled $14,300. I questioned how that amount had been reached, knowing that there were several major issues that needed correcting. I was told that if additional funds were needed, there was a contingency fund that could be used to complete the necessary improvements. At that time, it was something like $94,000. It is my understanding that the water at the shelter, and again, please forgive me if there's some repetition to what you just heard. It's my understanding that the water at the shelter is presently not potable, thereby placing both staff and animals in jeopardy. I question how much the town has already spent trying to remedy the unsafe water situation, and why hasn't there been any follow-up to correct the critical problem that now exists. If I'm wrong, please, I'll stand corrected, but that's not my understanding. Without clean water, you are placing staff and animals at risk and cannot properly clean the facility. It is apparent that the town is not caring for this building, which they own. I believe this is the only town-owned property with this distinction. As a resident, animal lover, and supporter of Ms. Lombardi, I want to know what the board plans on immediately doing to correct the problems that exist at the shelter. If I might add, I have contacted the facility and I've spoken with First Selectwoman on a few occasions, and inevitably a letter will come saying, thank you for your comments, we're either looking into it. Don't do that. Don't waste people's time and energy. I think it's more important, instead of coming back with some pat responses, that the residents see some action, that something is actually being done. And this may sound like a recording that just keeps playing, but maybe some of us feel that if you keep playing it and playing it, something's got to sink in sooner or later, and some action has to be taken. The issue of the shelter, the treatment of Miss Lombardi, and unresolved complaints regarding the shelter, which have been submitted to the town, have nothing to do with politics, as Mr. Grothier alluded to in his recent letter to the Amity Observer. This is not a partisan issue. This is doing the right thing. And the handout that I've just given out, and again, Tony, I apologize, I did not know you were there. The handout were the figures that I was given. Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I was given in terms of what was going to be done. And added to that are the things that, having done a walkthrough, are obvious things that need to be done. You have 3 towns now. It's Derby, Bethany, Woodbridge. Obviously, Orange is not coming back. I guess they're staying with Milford. But the town has allowed the facility to drop in a further state of disrepair. And because Karen is not there to call attention to these things, even though Tony goes there and Kathy Piccarello might go down there, it's a different set of eyes that are seeing it. And there's no ill feeling here. Everybody's trying to do their best. But I'm speaking personally now. It is extremely frustrating to go over this, and you don't see any action. And as a taxpayer, I'm angry. As an animal lover, I'm disgusted. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ed Weinberg. I live at 24 Ranch Road, and I've been hearing people talk about the animal shelter for quite some time, and I also have heard that, and maybe you can tell me if what I've heard is correct, that although there's 3 different towns that use it, Woodbridge plays the bulk of it. And I'm wondering if there's anyone here who talks to the other towns to find out if maybe they'd add some more money into the pot to do some of the renovations they're talking about. Can someone give me I hear that we pay about half of it, and there's 3 of us that share it equally. Is that correct, or did I get my numbers wrong?
Yeah, we pay around half, a little more than half.
Okay, so we're paying half, there's 3 of us. Does anybody here talk to the other 2 towns?
We've had previous discussions among the board about reaching out to other towns, and we will
Maybe
continue
it should go to a different town for the next 2 years and then move to the other one and then back here, or?
Bethany and Derby, we have contracts with. Those contracts, I think, are coming up pretty soon, and it's the intent, I think, of the board to renegotiate those contracts for a higher price.
Okay.
Keep in mind, when the district was dissolved, we were very happy that Bethany and Derby came to the town to provide an additional source of revenue, or else Woodbridge would be paying 100% of the facility. So whatever we get is very good. I agree with you that we should try and get more, and hopefully when the contracts end, we will be able to negotiate better agreements. There are other facilities around for Derby and Bethany to go to if they didn't have Woodbridge, so there's the marketplace that bears in terms of getting them to continue to stay and raise their rates.
Maybe we can get a 4th or a 5th.
We're always talking to people for a 4th.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, Chuck Pine, 162 Center Road. A couple things. First of all, I think I've asked this before. I'll ask it again. Can we get a microphone for everybody who's going to speak? Because when you watch it on TV, I'm missing probably a third of the comments. And, okay, a real crowd pleaser, right? Okay, get the drift. So if we part with a couple of shekels and get that, that would really be appreciated. Second of all, there was a point that Donald Slaughter brought up I'd like to just emphasize, and that has to do with when public comment occurs versus when you folks are getting information, presentations, and then potentially making a vote. The way that your meetings are structured now is we get a shot at the beginning of the meeting to say whatever we're going to say and sitting here. I would suggest that anybody who's going through the joy of sitting back here in the cheap seats for these meetings to get this information would like the opportunity to speak to you once we hear what you either already know or are also hearing it. So I know it may have an impact on the length of these meetings, and I know you guys are putting in long hours as it is, but so are those of us who aren't elected but who care about certain issues. The Malone McBroom is a great example. I'm going to make a comment about that in a minute, but I would ask you to consider changing the structure of these meetings, and it doesn't have to be a public comment for everything. Some stuff's very pro forma. I understand that. But anything where people are coming, they don't have information, they want to hear it, they want to hear it presented fresh when you're getting it, we'd like an opportunity to at least tell you what we think when it's fresh in everybody's mind. So that was point 2. Third point, I did get a copy of the, I think it's 28-page Malone and McBroom report as to what's going on with the golf course. And I would say this about that report. They did their homework on one particular option for that property, and good for them. The town's paying money, they should do their homework, and they vetted it, I guess, to the best of their ability. But I would offer to you, as I have before, that there are other options available for this property that should go through at least as equal a vetting, if not having outside companies who can potentially do other things with the property come in and really explain to us what the potential is with their idea. I'm very concerned that we're going down a single-rung track of a particular proposal that's been on the books for months. We go through Woodbridge listens, we tinker around the edges, but I was one of about 20 people who spoke at the meeting in February. I don't recall a single person enthusiastically supporting what was proposed. Yet what you're going to see tonight and what I've seen in advance, I don't think materially has changed since February. So if you want to look at that as an option, that's great, but that's one option. Before we take it to the voters in town, I would urge you to go out to other companies who have other ideas and go through this vetting process. I would also suggest, by the way, that the company who may come and make an offer to do something else with the property Have a third party analyze whether their proposal makes sense. Obviously, anybody coming to pitch an idea for us is going to put their proposal in the best possible light, right? That's understood. And Malone Bruin, I think, did the same thing here. And that's fine. But I think we need to have I'll say, disinterested third party working on our behalf to evaluate multiple proposals before you come back to the voters with anything. So I would ask you to consider that as you're doing your deliberations this evening. Thank you.
My name is Barry Collins. I'm from Bethany. We're very happy that we are part of this particular district. We have been since the very beginning, and we're still sticking with the district. However, there are big problems down there, as you have heard. They definitely start with the plant. I've been a volunteer, I'm not a volunteer there at the moment, but I was a volunteer all through the 1990s and into the early part of the 2001, 2002. And I have kept in touch ever since, so I have a good 20-year perspective, maybe, I think it's been more than 20, 25 years. We've had some very mediocre people down there. In addition, the best person we have ever had is Karen. No question about it. She's a first-class person. She really cares about the animals. She's a good public relations for this. We desperately need somebody who's good on public relations. And I don't just mean fake stuff, I mean who knows how to deal with people and conveys the love and the care that they have for animals themselves to help assess people who are coming in who don't know who they are and whether they are what they say they are. And I just would like to urge you to absolutely get after this physical problem, but that's secondary to the personnel. And just having somebody trained specially who used to be there in the past, as volunteers, I got to tell you, we had very severe problems with him. I definitely want Karen back, and all of us want Karen back. It's a tragedy that something absolutely trivial, and it is trivial, has gotten classed under a legal terminology that sounds a lot worse than it is. She's 1 in a million, and you're not going to get somebody like her if you let her slip through your fingers. There's got to be a way to get her back. I know that we're not going to stop pressing for it, so I urge you to do something about it, because you have a first-class ACO there. And it's just a shame that she's been denied. We've missed her for 1.5 years. She hasn't been there. And it shows. So I urge you to work on it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.